Okay, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We're gonna have a few more people coming in later on, but that's totally all right. We'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Annika, and I am one of the co-chairs of the College Ambassadorship program, and I'm a rising sophomore studying neuroscience at Rice University. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of how this is gonna work. So first, our panelists are gonna introduce themselves, give a little bit of an overview about the university they're attending, and then we're going to answer a few questions, a few of the main topics that were asked a lot in the frequently asked questions about academics and extracurriculars. Then we'll go into how to be a competitive applicant for each of these schools. And finally, why each of our panelists chose their schools and maybe some considerations of why this could be a good school for you. And so at the end, we'll have a a question session. And if nobody really has any questions here, then we'll go over some of the questions that were asked in the FAQ section of the RSVP. So we'll just go ahead and get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Candy. I go to Rice University. I'm going to be a sophomore, majoring in biosciences with a concentration in cell biology, and I'm minoring in neuroscience. And as for the extracurriculars that I'm currently involved in, I volunteer at MD Anderson. I do some research in the Baylor Center of Medicine. I'm the vice president of the Rice Neuroscience Society, and I'm the president of the Coalition Rice on Hunger and Homelessness. It's a bit of a long name, so I shortened it. And this is just, you can get involved with a lot of stuff.
Hi, my name is Aditi. I will be attending UT Dallas in like a week. I'm a rising freshman studying neuroscience, and I'm the vice president of the Happiness Club. I'm also a part of the Journal Club of Biosciences. I'm also a volunteer for Brain Exercise Initiative, and I'm also a part of UTD's EMR system.
Hi everyone, my name is Annika, and I go to Texas A&M University. I am a rising sophomore, and I'm currently studying biomedical sciences. I'm currently involved in two organizations, and Team AU United Way and Texas Apprentice Doctorate Medical Chapter, and I'm an officer for both of those organizations.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine. I go to the University of Texas at Austin, and I am a rising junior. My major is biology, and I'm minoring in sociology as well. So I'm the founder and president of the UT Black Women Wellness Organization. I'm also the outreach administration for the UT Austin Volunteer Corps, and I also spend time volunteering at Del Seton Medical Center.
Hi guys, my name is Zara. I also attend the University of Texas at Austin. I am a rising junior, and I am majoring in biology and minoring in psychology. And my extracurriculars are that I am secretary for Mu Delta Alpha, which is a professional Muslim women's sorority.
So now they're just going to give a little bit of an overview about each of their schools.
So for UT Austin and the academics, there are a very wide range of majors with subspecialties. So for example, you can major in biology and have a concentration in cell bio, and etc. There's a lot of academic and peer advising available, whether it be for literally any subject that you need help on. And there are also multiple tutoring resources around campus, and there's ample opportunity to start studying groups and ask for help in all aspects of the school. And yeah.
So concerning the pre-med side at UT Austin, it's really nice because they have a health professions office, which helps with advising for pre-med, and they help with medical school applications and any kind of questions you may have about credits and what you can transfer, what you can't transfer. There are a lot of Greek organizations that are dedicated to pre-med. So you have like professional women's pre-med organizations. And then there are a lot of clubs dedicated to like shadowing. There's a health careers mentorship program, and that's all about shadowing pretty much. And then there are a bunch of labs that you can always get involved in as well. There are so many that are always looking for research assistants, and there are a lot of different levels that you can help on, whether it be with data or going in and actually working with patients. And then there's a lot of volunteering opportunities as well with the DelMed system, like Christine was mentioning earlier, that we're involved in. So yeah.
Yes, and then with the social life at UT Austin, so there's amazing school spirit, especially with sports, such as football and volleyball. And there's a lot of Austin nightlife. For example, the infamous 6th Street, which is like the epicenter of the entertainment in Austin. So on 6th Street, there's like live performances, live performances, and then the campus is always bustling. There's people always going. There are speaker events and there are a variety of clubs you can rush. You can so that's sororities or fraternities. So there's just many opportunities to socialize with people and actually make your experience memorable at college.
Yeah, so moving on to kind of an overview of the application for UT Austin. So this would be done through Apply Texas, and they have topic A, I think, is what you would be completing, and then you have 3 short answers that you would be working on, and these prompts are all posted on their admissions website. And then you would have, I believe, 1 optional short answer as well. And then depending on what college you're specifically applying in, so whether it be nursing or if you're looking at engineering, you would have further requirements for those. And then resume and things like that are optional.
For Texas A&M, on the academic side, there are many majors that prepare you well. If you choose to major in a science-related major, there's like biomedical sciences, there's public health, and then there's also biology and chemistry. But even if you don't decide to major in in something that's related to science, the other majors do prepare you well. If you do choose to go into medicine, so that's a really good thing about A&M. And then also there's really good tutoring services. A&M offers tutoring services on campus as well as off campus. On campus, they're usually hosted in the library, and even some professors will be a part of those tutoring sections so that you can get like help for those harder classes like organic chemistry or biochemistry. And then overall, though, in terms of academics, there are just so many great resources to help you. The professors are going to be always willing to help you outside of class. For pre-med, the basic coursework does prepare you really well for the MCAT. Most of the majors, especially if you major in a science-related major, it has all the prerequisites for the MCAT, and it does lay a good solid foundation. In terms of extracurricular activities, there are 2 big hospital systems in A&M, and it's Baylor Scott and White and Chi St. Joseph, and those 2 hospitals do offer many volunteering opportunities, shadowing opportunities, and even some internship opportunities. And then also A&M does have a really big project list online where professors will post a research project, and they will ask for like they'll need like a team of a certain size. And so that's a really great way to find research opportunities, because even though A&M is big, there's always opportunities you can find. In terms of the social life, A&M does have an incredibly supportive environment. There's a lot of clubs and organizations for you to meet really great people. The school spirit, especially the nightlife and football life, is really, really good to be a part of. So the social life is definitely something that you would love if you choose to go to A&M. In terms of the application for Texas A&M is Apply Texas. Most of it is required. They do require 1 essay, but the things that they don't require is a letter of recommendation, but I still do recommend that you submit a letter of recommendation, because that can increase your chances of getting in and then getting to know you more as an applicant.
For UT Dallas, academics, like everyone else said, lots of majors and minors, and doesn't matter if you're pre-med, you can do whatever major or minor you want to do, and doesn't have to be science related, whatever you want, your passion is. There are a lot of advising teams at UT Dallas, and they've split it up based on how many things you're involved in. So everyone gets an academic advisor, which is mostly for your scheduling, and they're really well, they know your major and your school of study really well, so they can help you with that. And then if you're in honors, you have an honors advisor who can help you more and get into some classes that might already be full or something, like extra stuff that you get if you're in honors. And then specifically for pre-med, they have HPAC, which is for health professions advising. And so they're really helpful for anything that might be related to your pre-med courses, getting into med schools, what research opportunities are, anything that might be pre-med related, you go to them, and they're really helpful with that. And then outside of office hours that professors will have, there are a lot of tutoring options. And there's a whole section on their website about different types of tutoring. They have tutoring from students that have taken the class before. Other ones are that you have a group of people that are all taking the same class as you at the same time, and you guys meet up and have tutoring like once per week. And then you can just have like walk-in tutoring. You just walk in and ask for help. And then in terms of pre-med, like I said, you have HPAC, you go to them, and it's really important to go to them just because they'll also be the ones that will they'll be writing your letters of recommendation for med school, and that's a huge part of your application. So they help you out with that. They help you out find opportunities. And outside of that, there are a lot of pre-med clubs, and each one focuses on different things. So some of them stress on research, some of them stress on finding volunteer opportunities. So you don't have to join all of them, but there are a lot available, and you can find which ones are the most helpful for you. And then in terms of research, there is a lot on campus and a lot off campus. On campus, UTD started out as a research university, so most professors are conducting their own research. It's just a matter of you emailing them and like getting to know a little bit about what they're doing, and then just asking them, can you join their lab? And most are really willing to add you on. And then off campus, there are a lot of centers nearby. There's the Center for Brain Health that does a lot of research on brain related stuff, and you can just find out more on their website. And then there are a few programs that UTD has. So there's this thing called TEMRAP and Green Fellowship and the Clark's program. A lot of this information is online. They don't really tell you about TEMRAP, Green Fellowship, or Clark's program as much, but if you just go to their website, it's really easy to find, and these are some great programs. One of them is a partnership with UT Southwestern and their medical school and also the hospital system associated with them, and you go and do research with them, and it's really helpful. Green Fellowship is where for a full semester you do research at UT Southwestern instead of your regular classes. And something that I didn't know about until later on was the Clark's program. And it's a summer research team they set up for incoming freshmen. It was canceled this year, but during the summer, basically, whoever signs up, they usually let most people participate, and you get matched up with a professor and you do research for that entire summer before you even get into the university and actually start going to classes. And one of the major hospitals nearby, which you can do shadowing with, is the Parkland Hospital. And it's a really big hospital. It's one of the busiest in the country. In terms of social life, like they said, clubs are really helpful for finding friends and like meeting new people. But I would say specifically for UTD, just because there isn't really a football environment, clubs are more stressed upon for finding new people. And other than that, there is a Greek life system here, but it's not the main thing, but if you want it, it's definitely there. In terms of application, UTD also uses Apply Texas. They give you the option of doing SAA, B, or C, but most other Texas colleges require you to do SAA, so you will already have that one done. And then the application that they use, you're automatically considered for their academic scholarships. As long as you apply before December 1st, you have priority for those. And there are additional applications for other scholarships. And so you can just go on their website and find out more for those. And for the honors program, there's an additional application for that as well. So you just go on their website and find out more.
All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about Rice University. So I'll start with academics. We have a really wide range of majors and minors, basically anything you can think of, and the university admin is very receptive to, the students' concerns if they want to expand their major, if they want to turn a major into a minor or add on a minor. My current major, the biosciences with a concentration in cell bio, is actually one of the newer ones that they're just adapting this year based on feedback from the students. We also have a really extensive and accessible advising network from the Office of Academic Advising. They have different sections, different advisors in there focused towards, humanities, natural sciences, social sciences. We also have our peer academic advising network, which is more focused on the residential colleges, which I'll go into in social life. But they are just peers that have gone through some extra training and will be able to help you guys with any questions you have, from which classes should I take to how difficult is this professor, how much course load will I expect. We also have really great advisors and TAs. They're always there. You just have to email them, reach out, and they'll be able to answer any questions you have about the class. They also love just discussing, other things that are class related or even not class related. So academics, even though it can be a little bit difficult, thinking about the more weed out pre-med classes, orgo, biochemistry, the professors are great and they will be able to help you through it and help you succeed in those classes. Moving on to the pre-med aspect, I think there's a really supportive environment, pre-med environment at Rice. You always hear about the competition, and of course there is competition, but it's a bit less stifling than I found at some of the other universities I personally visited when I was going through the whole application cycle. There's plenty of opportunities, both in the Texas Medical Center, which is 5 minutes away from campus. There's also a lot of research on campus and off campus. I do it off campus in the Baylor Center of Medicine. And there's, again, a really great advising team, both peer advisors and faculty advisors. And there's also a lot of clubs, activities, both geared towards pre-med and geared towards pre-med adjacent things, advocacy, anything you can really find, or you can even make your own if you're not, finding what you want to do. I guess moving on to social life. So I mentioned before, but we have the residential college system, and kind of a general introduction. These are 11 different colleges, basically dorms with attached serveries. So these are what we call our dining halls. And the reason they're so amazing is that you can find like your social circle, a lot of supportive people there, like living right next to you already. So obviously you can find a social life if you just, put yourself out there, reach out to different clubs, activities. But, in the first few months, it can be a little bit difficult to do that. And the residential college system and the people in it, in your college, are kind of just there as a supportive network of people that you have already. Again, there are many clubs and activities. It's really easy to get involved in whatever you're really looking for. I think the surrounding areas in Rice are really accessible. So we have Rice Village. It's kind of like this little plaza district with a lot of restaurants, shops. I think there's a CVS there, and it's 10 minutes walking distance from Rice. There's also the Houston Zoo and the Museum District, both of which Rice students get free admission to. So that's, you know, a really great way to de-stress a little bit, maybe see some animals. So the surrounding areas to Rice really do help with the social life because they're so accessible. They're pretty safe. Even if you're stepping off campus, you know, at like 12 or 1, it's a really great environment to be in. So talking about the application now, I found that they were fairly typical questions about leadership, really showcasing, giving you the chance to showcase who you are and what experiences you've been through. I believe Rice has like this why major essay. So why do you want to study what you want to study? And one thing that we do have that is a little bit more unique is called the box. And this is where you submit a picture of that interests you or inspires you, just anything you want to submit, but it's like a picture, and I don't think you have the chance to explain. Just to give you guys a little bit of context, that can be anything from like a really treasured item you have, or it can be something that kind of shows what you value, basically anything. I will say that Rice University is somewhat competitive. One reason this might be is because we have a really small undergraduate population for a university that's not, you know, strictly liberal arts. We have 4,000 undergraduate students only, and while this does kind of lend itself to not being as competitive in terms of pre-med because there are so many opportunities with fewer students, it can be a little bit more difficult to get in. So I would say make sure you put your best foot forward. And I found that, you know, what you get in return for all that effort is so worth it. And I really can't picture myself at any other university.
So just a little where we are. So now we're just going to go in a little bit about academics and extracurriculars, mainly like what's important, how to find things, balancing, just really quickly, and then we'll go into how to be a competitive applicant. So would any of our mentors, our panelists like to take how to choose a major, how you chose your major, and how important is your major really?
I can go ahead and chime in here. So, like I said before, I am a biology major, and how I chose that major was when I was in high school, I really just love biology. And I think it's important to understand that although, you know, you may be taking the MCAT or the DAT or anything, do not just choose a major because it may look good on your application, or it's for reasons that are not only personal for you. And I also thought that by choosing this major, I would learn many of the questions that I've always had since I was a kid, and just really dive into, you know, what I really love to research and study. But also understand that you can choose whatever major you want and still, for example, go to medical school. Like my best friend, she's a history major and she's also pre-med. You know, so it's important to fulfill your needs and what you like, and also go after your dreams as well. And then for the pre-med opportunities, so I'm in research, and it's called the Freshman Research Initiative at UT Austin. Please look into that if you plan on applying to the University of Texas at Austin. It's a really great opportunity because it allows you to do research at a very, like immediately once you get into college. And there is an application, but but many of them reach out to the students first. But there is an application, and then also volunteer at the medical center. And for that, you just apply and you're able to really just have a one-on-one patient interaction, learn from nurses, learn from doctors. And I think it's really cool to experience and see. Pre-med opportunities may be difficult to find, as many of the mentors have stated before, but it's important to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to email professors. Don't be afraid to Google as much as you can Google to find whatever you feel like you need to do. Another recommendation, you know, don't just do research because you feel like this will look good on my application. Don't do anything just because you feel like it's gonna be what the people viewing your application want. Just do something that you're really passionate about. So when you do go to those dental school or medical school interviews, everything just comes naturally. You don't have to force anything. So overall, choosing your major is important, but it's not everything. So make sure you choose what you love to do. And the pre-med opportunities, they may be hard to seek out, but try your best to put your best foot forward and to just um, look for what you want to do personally.
Kind of building off on what Christine said. So she's right. You can do any major you want and still be a pre-med. I think that, in fact, it might be a little bit beneficial if you did like a different major because it brings a different perspective that you can really showcase on your application. Like you're not going to have the same experience as a classics major, for example, as you would a biosciences. Having said that, one benefit to doing a major in like the more natural sciences realm is that a lot of the requirements, course requirements for applying to med school are already included in the major. So I'm thinking like organic chemistry, biochemistry, some of the other pre-medi classes. Those are already requirements for the major. For example, I've already taken physics, I've already taken math, because I am a biosciences major. So let's say that I was a history or a humanities major, something that was a little bit different and didn't include all the courses. I would complete the courses required for my major and also on the side complete the pre-med courses. So it is a little bit more of a workload, I guess, if you do a different major other than natural sciences, but it's definitely not impossible. And I wouldn't say that you should, if you really don't find a passion in natural sciences, I think that you shouldn't, just force yourself to do a natural sciences major. One, because it's really not that much extra work to do what you love and just do the pre-med courses on the side. And also, GPA and MCAT scores, all those baseline numbers are actually fairly important. And if you don't do a major or a majority of classes that you're really interested in, those numbers are not going to be as high as, say, someone who was really interested in their major. It's just easier, I guess, in the long run. If you do something that you really love, you're going to be happy. Who doesn't want that? And it's not impossible to do something that you love and just do the pre-med course on the side. I am doing biosciences because I really am passionate and really interested in, cell biology and what I'm learning now. But if I forced myself to do another major, I know that I would not be as successful.
Just to go off of that a little bit, while academics are really important, so are extracurriculars. So how do you find that balance between the two and choose which extracurriculars that you chose, and maybe, just mainly just balancing and how you chose them? Any mentor want to take that?
Okay, so I haven't officially started any college work, but I would say a huge thing that a lot of upperclassmen have stressed to me is it changes from high school to college in that you have to be a lot more self-sufficient. In high school, your teachers always reminded you when things were due until they always told you needed to finish your work. In college, it's gonna be much different. Professors aren't gonna be constantly hounding you to finish your work. You have to plan it out for yourself. You have to be better at time management. That's the main thing. And especially your freshman year, it's going to be a huge change for you because it's probably going to be your first time living alone away from home. And so I would say a huge thing be figuring out more how to move into that different lifestyle, a huge change to just socially for you. And so balancing work I would say, don't make it too much of a workload when you're starting out, because grades are very important for med school applications. And so just finding that balance for yourself and managing your time well will be the biggest thing.
And to just expand on that a bit, for example, I for me personally, it took me about 2 years to get the time management down packed. So for example, what I do is that on Friday afternoons, I don't do any work. I focus on myself. I make sure I watch my favorite Netflix show or whatever. And I make sure to not overextend myself. So that's the biggest thing to do. So I know I love to play volleyball, and I know I love to mentor, make sure I advocate for diversity and inclusion, but I also have 17 hours to take in school, right? So what you have to do is definitely don't try to study all your subjects in one day. Spread it out. So plan for the week. I know a lot of people, they need plan for the month. I plan for the week and just go day by day. So I just want to emphasize, don't overextend yourself. Do what you love and just balance it based on what you personally can take. Do not compare yourself to your friends and say, oh, because my friend is doing that, so I feel like I should do that. Don't do that. Do what you personally can take.
Yeah, and just one more point that I wanted to make there is colleges want a new perspective just for even application. So don't compare yourself to your friends and what they're doing, because colleges want to see you and this applies to medical school as well. They want to see what new things you bring to the table and how you would make a valuable addition to the college environment. And so now we're just going to go into each school and how to be a competitive applicant for each school and just some admissions things that you should consider when applying.
So for UT Austin, I think the biggest thing that I made sure when I was applying is when I was filling out, the different short answers and even the main essay, I think the biggest thing is to truly be yourself and not try to write about what you think the committees are going to want to hear, the admission committees, the admission boards, what you think they're going to want to hear, because this really goes for any college, but I think if you are just filling out like any sort of generic prompt, you really just want to be yourself. And I think you're still able to weave in the activities you did in high school, the clubs you did, whatever research or volunteering you took part in, and still make it sound natural and organic. And I think, brainstorming, kind of seeing what you can come up with before you start writing about the prompt and see, okay, just really sit down and think about it for a bit. I think the preparation is one of the most important parts, and that's what's going to make you a very competitive applicant all around. And then for SAT and ACT, I know that might be a little bit different this time around because of COVID, so I believe it's optional for quite a few colleges. And so for that, I think that's definitely something that SAT, ACT, and or GPA, you want to make sure that they're like fairly high, I'd say, but really everything does work together. So at the end of the day, if you are giving the numeric, the sort of like quantitative test values, like if you're giving those your all and you're putting in the effort, then the admissions committees will see that because they do evaluate everything holistically. So it's not just, if you don't have a certain GPA, like hopefully it shouldn't discourage you. You should always try to apply if that's something that you're definitely looking into. But definitely having higher end scores, that does put you up there a little bit and being more competitive. And then again, letters of rec, I think, are the biggest. Letters of rec and submitting your resume, those are optional for, I think, quite a few like UT system schools and a lot of schools in Texas. But I think submitting those really, really helps you stand out. And especially I think for UT Austin, because a lot of the different colleges at UT are so competitive within their right. I mean, I had friends applying to their engineering school, and I think those are the things that really help you stand out separately from other people, is when you have specific recommendations. Maybe if you perhaps like shadowed an engineer, shadowed a doctor, whatever, those are the things that really help make you a competitive applicant. So, and then the resume as well, which will give extra information that you won't necessarily cover in your application. So I don't really recommend repeating what you already put down, because they do want to see like, oh, here are the other things, like maybe you worked with a research lab outside of school, and that's not something you talked about in your application. So.
Okay, so for Texas A&M, a lot of it is similar to what has already been said. For your GPA and SAT, They are important, but it is not everything. As long as you have, as long as you're happy with it and you think it represents your abilities, then definitely don't worry too much about that aspect of your application. Another really important thing though is the essay. One note about your essay I would say is that make sure that you're first of all being honest, but also being specific. When schools read your essays, they don't want something that's general. They don't want something that can almost come off as dishonest or disingenuous. So definitely do be sure that your essay expresses your goals and expresses who you are as a person. And that's, to me, that's really important. Try to show who you are as a person, not just as a student, because yes, your education is important, but you are more than just grades and test scores. So show who you are holistically. And then also, I do think it's very important to do research on the schools that you're applying to. In terms of that, I mean like the mission and values, because if you do not, like if your values do not align with the schools, then you might not have the best time at that school. So I would definitely do research and look into the school's mission and values and see if they match with what you want to have in your undergraduate career. And if that is the case, then be sure to express that in your application. And then also another tip for being a competitive applicant is to start preparing early as possible. A lot of students generally don't really think about this until maybe their junior year. And so I do think it can be very helpful to start preparing really early because it can help you explore your interests, it can help you increase your involvement, and it can definitely help you develop connections. Developing connections is very important because I feel like a lot of people in pre-med think that connections are not as important as in like a business related field, but connections can help you gain so many like opportunities like internships and shadowing. Like I know I'm still in touch with so many of my so many of the people that I connected with in Dallas, and that really helped me during this time because I'm not in College Station because of COVID, and it really helped me kind of stay involved and find opportunities. So that's definitely the biggest advice I have, is definitely develop connections and like explore what you think is interesting, what you are interested in. If you really are sure that what you do want to do is medicine, then be able to show some kind of success and achievement in your area of interest. So that means maybe doing a science-related internship with a hospital or doing research. All of those things are incredibly helpful to show colleges that you're dedicated to your future profession. Now, for your application, a lot of it is optional except for a few essays and your academic record. But like it was stated before, optional really means that you should do it just so that they can help you, that colleges can get a better idea of who you are, and that it can help you kind of stand out out of the pool of many, many applicants.
Like they said, get involved early in general, like in high school, get involved in your clubs and extracurriculars, start researching, volunteering as early as you can, just because it's important to like figure out what your passion is and also to show commitment throughout your years. And also in terms of the actual application process, start as early as possible in the summer, just because a lot of my friends didn't start until much later and they found themselves trying to cram all of their essays into like one weekend, and it was very stressful for them. It's just something, a little tip. And one of the things that I would say that a lot of people try to spend a little time in a lot of activities, but I would say the most important thing is to choose a few that you're really passionate about, and then spend the most time on those, really get leadership positions, spend a lot of time on those, because those will also be what you'll talk to, what you'll talk about during interviews, and they'll make the best essay topics. It just shows that you're passionate about that, rather than spending a little time in many things. You won't really get to go in deep with those activities. It's just kind of it's like just a layered level thing. It's not as useful for you because you won't be spending too much time with anything, and it's and it's more useful if you actually just choose a few and go really in depth with those, spend a lot of time. For your essay, one thing that was really helpful for me was I started my resume really early, and I started at the beginning of my high school career, and every time I added something extra, I went onto my resume and updated it. And so by the time I was applying, I already had everything on one page in one place for me to reference to. And the biggest thing with the application process, I would say the biggest advice I would give is being able to sell yourself, because the huge thing is how you present yourself in your essays and on your application. Two people might have the same exact, like very similar grades and like activities, but if one of them can portray themselves better in their essays, they're the ones admissions are going to go with. And then one thing that I did was I had people, at least one person read all of my essays. And so the biggest thing that I saw was the colleges that I did get into, those are the ones that their essays, I didn't change them a whole lot, in that my personality was still the same in the essays, so it still reflected me the best. And those are the schools that I felt like were a better fit for me. And then the main thing in your essays, show what you did. Don't just say that you led this club, or you're president of this club, or you held a fundraiser. Show what you did, and then say how it impacted you and how it was helpful for you, like anything that that showed you. And then one thing that was useful for letters of recommendation for me was that for my teachers that I asked, they asked me for a resume so they could refer to it when they were writing their letters. And something that I was recommended by an upperclassman was that a lot of teachers tend to ask for resumes, and then they just write about your extracurriculars and they don't really focus on how you were as a student in their classroom. And so one thing I did was I provided a mini resume of accomplishments in that class, like some small things specific to their class, just to remind them about how I was as a student in their class, just because usually it's a past year's teacher, so they don't really remember a whole lot about you as a student, and so it's just a nice refresher for them. And then just for UT Dallas specifically, their honors program is very competitive in comparison to just their general admissions. And so if you are trying to get into their honors program, they have a separate application, and their first cut is based on grades, so that like numerical scores. And so that is just important to keep that up. But the main things that they use for the final acceptance are their short answers and extracurriculars. So it's really important to sell yourself in that.
Okay, so a few tips for Rice specifically. I mean, I think a couple of these points have already been mentioned. Start really early. If you're applying this cycle, start writing your essays as soon as the prompts come out, even if it's just, brainstorming, because if you can get those ideas down, you can have a framework. If you're not applying this cycle, start really early, and when you start to get involved. So in extracurriculars, school clubs, research, volunteering, a lot of extracurriculars really do build up year by year, whether it's if you can gain some leadership opportunities in these, or if you can maybe even start your own project for like research, for example. I think that it's really quality over quantity. So choose a few activities that you really like doing, that you've really, put your time, effort, passion into. And these will really, you can really write about them and showcase them in your essays as examples of, who you are, what you've chosen to do, what you're interested in, and what the college can offer you. Again, with the resume, you want to be really clear, informative, write everything down. And I think you can embellish your resume a little bit. Obviously, don't lie about your opportunities or your activities or what you've done, but just, really emphasize like the good parts about the activities, I guess. And in your essays, you want to write about experiences unique to you, because it's you, right? You're applying, and the colleges want to see who you are. So a minor note about this point, I would hesitate about writing about your academic like struggles if, for example, the college asks or I think Rice, you can write about this in one of Rice's prompts, but basically something like, tell us about a time you've overcome a struggle, or tell us about a difficult period in your life. I would hesitate about writing, academics, like I had this hard time in this class, or I had such a hard time, this year, if your only struggle is about the grades, because that's not a unique experience to you necessarily. If you can put a spin on it, maybe, but if you can't, then I'm sure you have other things to write about. Especially for Rice, you want to showcase your leadership. Rice is really big on community. Showcase your initiative, how you put yourself out there, what you've gotten because you did that, and also your willingness to grow. No one wants a person that is a fixed, like they've already become the best thing they can be. Everyone wants someone that can grow, that can really change, is willing to adapt and learn from their environment. I think that's why we go to college. Also, your individualism. I don't think that anyone can say, I don't have anything that's unique about me. Everyone has something. It's just you have to bring it out and really put yourself out there. For your Y School, another tip for your Y School essay, you want to express the values and the goals of the college. Why do you think you'll fit there? This is a more specific tip, but you want to clarify any phrases like-minded individuals, because think about it this way: if you're going to a college where everyone is like you, then you're not really changing or growing from that. It's more beneficial to say, I want to go to a college of like-minded individuals who are similarly, passionate about their career path or passionate about helping people. That's something a little bit clearer and a little bit more unique. Again, you want to express who are you as a person more than just what you've done. So don't just dump everything from your resume onto your essays without, really explaining why it's important to you. Again, you want to have really good scores, decent grades. For letters of recommendation, I think that, and this is another point, but optional does not mean optional, especially if you really, really want to get in. You want to increase your chances as much as possible, and letters of rec are a really good way to do it. You want trusted and reliable teachers, community members, people that you've really worked with, preferably for more than a year, because that will give you or give them more time to, talk about how they see you both in the classroom and as a person. You want to have a decent interview. And just a general tip for interviews, I know it can be difficult because you're meeting an alum for the first time. It's really nerve-wracking just, meeting someone. If you find the conversation kind of petering out, just ask a bunch of questions and listen to what they have to say. I think for my Rice interview, it actually lasted like an hour and a half, but I think that was the interview that I actually talked the least, because I noticed that my interviewer was really outgoing, really had a lot to say, really great things about Rice. So I was like, let me just back off and listen to her. And I mean, it turned out well. So yeah, I think another really important point is that time management is super, super, super important. I think you start to learn it when you get kind of sucked into the application cycle and really realize like, shoot, I have so much work to do and the deadline is in like a month, but you can do it if you really manage your time and manage your stress. And this is a skill that is really important in college too. And one last point I think is, don't discount soft skills like interviewing, interacting with people, really learning how to do things that won't necessarily go on paper. I think those skills are really, really important, and you can start honing them at any point in your life, even if you're just a freshman or even if you've already been accepted.
So now our panelists are just going to go into a little bit about why they chose their school and what things they thought about when choosing.
Why I chose UT, it's a couple of different factors for me. I'm a little bit of a different case because I am a transfer student there. So I transferred when I was going into my sophomore year, so this past school year. But my dad actually went to UT, so that played like somewhat of a big factor in me considering to apply there and going through that entire process. So I guess I applied there initially when I was in high school, mainly because I had heard that they had a lot of amazing pre-med volunteering opportunities, research opportunities. I knew a lot of older family friends who went there, were going there. We have like so many people that went to UT. And so I just kind of like grown up around that environment. And I actually had been considering A&M as well because a lot of my teachers and mentors had graduated from A&M, and it's also a phenomenal school in the biomedical sciences. And that's kind of like what I was deciding. And I think at the end for me, a lot of the reasons just pointed to UT because of definitely the way that it is set up, that you are basically in a city, but there's such a diverse population of people that you're always able to find sort of your group of friends, and there's such a welcoming environment because there's so many different kinds of people. And I think it's just a really well-rounded place in terms of social life and academics and just the environment overall.
Yes, definitely. I agree with everything Zara said. So for me personally, I got accepted to Baylor, Texas A&M, Texas State, HBU, and just other Texas schools. But why I chose UT was because of the support they gave me even before I attended the school. So, for example, I wrote my essays about my life, and they, of course, they went through the holistic process, and they offered me a $20,000 scholarship based off that essay. And so financial support was a really big reason because my parents have not, lifted a finger to pay for my education. And that was always a big worry for me personally, not being able to pay for college. And so UT gave me that support. And then the extensive resources, even before I came and accepted everything, they offered me a position with the FRI, the Freshman Research Initiative. They offered me a position with TIP Scholars, which is specifically for students in underserved communities. And so they kept having consistent communication, kept making sure that they were displaying that they supported me financially and also in other aspects as well. And they support having multiple interests. So yes, I am a biology student, but I also have always loved studying and was interested in the disparities in the criminal justice system. I always wondered about that. And so I'm able to actually pursue that through the Polymathic Scholars Honors Program. So there are 3 honors programs: the Dean Scholars, HSS, Health Science Scholars, and Polymathic Scholars. And through all 3 of these programs, you get to write a thesis that's kind of expanding on your interests. So I'm going to be writing a thesis on my research with the criminal justice system, and I also get to do research with virtual drug screening, which is my FRI lab. So I have multiple interests. They support that. They support me financially, and they just gave me a scholarship 3 days ago. So if you keep up your grade, they're more than willing to give you scholarships, which has just been like the biggest weight lift off my shoulders. So yeah.
So I chose A&M for a variety of reasons, but the biggest reason that by far that I chose A&M is because when I went to tour the campus, I really did love the support from the students and the town, and everybody that I met was just so friendly. And that didn't change like when I started school there. Like everyone is just so nice and so willing to help. And the one thing I love about A&M is that pre-med culture can become a little bit competitive, but everybody there is willing to help you out. They'll help look for resources. They'll share, what they're doing, or they'll share any opportunities that they find, or they'll help you in a class if you need it. And that's the one thing that I really do love about A&M, is that it's really is just such a supportive environment. The professors that I have had so far are amazing. They've always taken the time to reach out to the students, to spend copious amounts of time after class to help students that are having trouble, and they always check in. I've had several professors the students and be like, hey, is this method working? Like, do you guys like the class to be taught this way or this way? Or what did you guys think about this assignment? And so all of the professors are very, very receptive to the students' interests and needs. And that's one thing that A&M is really, really good about. There's also really great research opportunities at A&M, and just not even research opportunities, but the resources available to students are, there's so many resources to help students succeed academically, but also in your other interests outside of school. There's the resources that A&M provides are on campus, but off campus, just a 5-minute or 10-minute walking distance are very near to the campus. So there's so many, you can find so many things to do at A&M. And so those were really the major reasons why I chose to go to A&M.
So I was part of the most recent group that went through the whole application process. And like I said, I'm a rising freshman. And so for me, it was the whole process of trying to figure out which college I wanted to go to was very long. And from the colleges in Texas that I applied to, I got into UT, UTD, and Rice, and then also Baylor. I didn't apply to A&M, so I can't really speak for its comparison to these other colleges, but the first one I took out was Baylor just because my primary reason had been for the Baylor BSMD program. And then after that, it came down to UT, UTD, and Rice. And after that, I took out UT just because for all of these colleges, I had applied as a biomedical engineering major. But after that, after applying, I realized I actually wanted to go into neuroscience. And so that played into my decision. At UT, they do it in that you apply to a specific major within a school. And so it is a little complicated to transfer from one major to another if it's in 2 different schools. And so for UT, I had a $15K scholarship for that, but it was completely tied to me sticking to my engineering major. And so that wouldn't have worked out in the long run if I decided I wanted to switch over to neuroscience. And also another thing was that I've been accepted into health science scholars, which was part of the natural sciences, like Christine mentioned. And so in order for me to keep that honors program, I would have to pick up a second major in the natural sciences, which would have been a little difficult with how rigorous engineering was. And so I decided it was just too complicated, and I took UT out. And then it came down to UTD and Rice, and that was a huge thing for me. I literally waited until May 1st, 10 p.m. to decide. I would not recommend that, but it is a huge decision to try to figure out where you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life. And for me, it finally came down to I hadn't really looked into UTD as much as I had looked into Rice, and so I expressed some concern via an email, and the dean of UTD's honors college called me and my parents, and we had like a whole conference. A couple of professors also called in, and they told me a little bit more about UTD, some things I hadn't really known about. And after that call, I realized about how many more research opportunities UTD actually has, and that it's very comparable to Rice, and that Rice has Baylor College of Medicine, and that even they have a huge medical center, but UTD is also really close to like 4 huge hospitals, including the really big one in Parkland. And so that has very similar opportunities for shadowing and then research. Both have on-campus research. And so I saw that they have in terms of opportunities for a pre-med student, they were very similar. The biggest difference then came down to money, in that Rice would cost me like $70K, whereas UTD would be a free ride plus a stipend. And so in the end, I ended up choosing UTD.
So wow, I agree with that. Rice is a bit expensive. The good thing is they do have a lot of scholarship financial aid if you qualify, which you have to qualify though. But yeah, it's expensive. I guess so why I chose Rice, my decision, because I'm from California, which is, I guess, another thing that you have to consider, distance from home, and stay out of state. My choice really was between going to one of the UCs, which is our state school system, or going to the USC, University of Southern California. It's a private school in California, or Rice. And why I chose Rice was because after I was admitted, I went to visit for Owl Days, which is kind of like the introduction. You go there, you stay a day and kind of look at the campus, get a few tours, talk to some of the students. Everyone seemed to be really happy for some reason. Um, I think that's a bit of a simplified way of saying it, but everyone seemed satisfied, content with how they were able to kind of do what they wanted to. And I think that freedom to, find your own independence, have the support you need to do that was really important to me. And that was one of the main reasons I went. I also really, really love the campus. The smaller undergraduate population, residential college system, and another thing that I really noticed when I did go to visit was that the pre-med atmosphere was not as toxically competitive as I had experienced in my high school, for example, or in some of the UCs that I went to, that I toured. I think that it is competitive, but in the way that a lot of, like, if you are a pre-med student, you thrive on that competition and that leads you to push yourself to do more of what you want to do. So I found that it really wasn't toxic, and that was one of the things that was really important to me. Um, Another thing is that there seemed to be so much research. Like I really didn't talk to anyone, and since coming to Rice, I really haven't talked to anyone that wasn't able to find a any kind of research in what they were really interested in. Obviously there are some labs that will reject you, maybe because they're just full, but you're always able to find something else that is what you're interested in, and it might even be like another opportunity. There's really no sabotage in terms of the pre-med because there are so many opportunities, both on Rice and the Texas Medical Center. That was another reason I went. TMC is 5 minutes away, and there's so many volunteering opportunities, research, shadowing. It's all so accessible. And being that I am from out of state, I wouldn't have a car, right? So I couldn't go anywhere super far away from campus. So really nearby accessibility was super important to me. And since I've come here, I've realized that all those reasons were true. And I think that I found a lot more reasons actually why I love Rice. In addition to the great faculty and staff, the advising network is really extensive. Any type of support you could want, you'll find. Yeah, I think Rice is just a really great opportunity, a really great school with a lot of opportunities.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. And we're going to now open the floor to any questions that students have. You can just feel free to post them in the chat, and then we'll answer them in order, whichever is asked first. And if nobody really asks after we've gotten through a few and nobody's asking anymore, we'll go over some of the ones that were asked in the FAQs on the RSVP sheet. So the first question is, what are some ways to compensate with a fairly average GPA?
Personally, I would say your essays, I know we've emphasized that, but through your essays, maybe you can explain, like, maybe there were some events that occurred in your life that made you not focus so much on your academics. So that's how I would have compensated if that was my situation. Just explain that through the life events that I've had, that are the things that have occurred to me, I've kind of had to switch my focus from my academics to this situation. Or, and we did mention SAT scores or ACT scores. If you do not have a great GPA, but you have an excellent ACT or SAT score, I feel like that's a great way to compensate. So again, GPA is not everything. It really is not, in my opinion, because many people can just fly through high school and are able to have great memory or able to just do what they need to do to get the GPA they want. But it's through your essays and through these standardized tests that may not always be the best indication of intelligence, but are able to just show your skill level or in the qualities you may have.
And I would just like to add, you still do have first semester of senior year. And so if you just work a little hard, even if it's not a huge change, just a slight upward trend in your grades, which they will see your first semester, would be helpful in any case. Even the smallest thing could be helpful.
Okay, the next one, for writing essays specifically for Prompt A Apply Texas, what do you suggest writing about? Or I guess we can go approach this like, how do you brainstorm what you want to write about? Okay, I can take it. So basically, one of the things that really helped me when I was looking specifically for the Apply Texas essays is I made a list of all the extracurriculars that I did, and I kind of grouped them together. Like, what kind of relates to what? Because I think the prompt this year is something about, like, tell us your story, something along those lines. And so I think by having some sort of narrative with this connects to this, and how like this has shaped you into maybe what you want to do or who you are as a person or something along those lines, by writing that out, it might be really helpful just to be able to see, oh, this kind of relates to that. And then coming up with a few themes that are really important to you, like your values or something that you want to emphasize, and then making like trying to find a focus on how to tie that together.
Yeah, for mine, I was trying to remember what I did, but I did something similar. I went through my activities and I chose like the most important ones for me. And then I chose a couple of values that are really important. And then a huge thing was like finding a narrative for me to start out with and like tie it up at the beginning and end. And so making a list for each section and then choosing what works well together helped me like figure out how to format my essay and how I wanted to go about it. And then after that, I just sat down and wrote it, and then you could go back a couple of times and do a couple more drafts.
Yes, and just to expand on that a bit, so I did the exact same thing, but I also included, just major life events that happened from as far as I can remember. So I started off, me moving to where I am at now, some things that happened in my family, and I kind of connected that to the extracurriculars that I've joined, things that I've been passionate about, and again the values. So I just made these two kind of columns and just like put what I really things that happened to me that I felt were major.
Okay. Is it a good idea to tie your Apply Texas essay to your major?
I would say it really depends on what school which schools you're applying to, because some schools like UT and UTD do it, and that you have to accept into the school and then also accept it into your major. And so in that, I would say if you have any activities or reasonings for why you're choosing that major that are really impactful to your application, then yeah, it could be important, but it's definitely not required. It's just something, if it is going to be helpful for you in a major way, then yeah, try to tie it in.
Yeah, and to go off on that, there's also always supplemental essays. So if this is not what you want to showcase in your main Apply Texas essay as who you are as a person, you do have other opportunities to showcase your other things that relate to your major. Okay, the next question, could you please give an overview of the admissions process? Okay, I don't know which admission process this is for, so.
They're all like very different. So yeah, there's some overlap, but I think like generally it really just depends on the school.
Okay, specific to UT Austin, how competitive is the College of Natural Sciences, and is it one of the more competitive schools like business/engineering?
Mm.
I would say business and like computer science are the most competitive.
Yeah.
And then next comes engineering. And I would say engineering and natural sciences might be pretty similar.
Yeah, natural sciences. Sorry, were you gonna talk,
I
Christy?
was just agreeing.
Yeah, no, I think natural sciences, it's a bit difficult because computer science actually falls under that school. And so you have specific majors in natural sciences that are a lot harder to get into. Like, I know their biochemistry major is very, very popular. I have so many more biochemistry major friends than even biology friends. And then I know in particular, engineering, just in general, every single one of their majors, as far as I know, are quite difficult to get into if you just want like the honest answer. But with natural sciences, there is a bit more leeway, I think, because you have like human development and family sciences, and then ranging to astronomy. So like you have a lot of different majors you can pick from. And then kind of same goes for business overall. It is quite competitive. So yeah, I'd probably say that it is probably business, and then engineering and natural sciences are probably like right next to each other. So
Yes, and then just to explain that again, so you can get accepted into the UT, but then not get accepted into your major, and that happened to many of my friends during my senior year. And I remember they were accepting people into the biology major or into many of the CNS majors if they had a 620 on their MCAT. But I know that that's probably not the deal. That hasn't probably been the deal since 2018 or before then, I'm not sure. But they had a specific requirement for you to get into the actual school. So I feel like you should just be aware of that. But overall, I would just say it's just very competitive in general. But it's important to just be persistent and yeah.
yeah, definitely. And this is kind of an additional answer in case anyone is wondering, but the program that I went through as a transfer student is like what they recommend to basically like, as far as I know, they just recommend it to everyone who doesn't get in like on their first year. And you basically go through like another specific UT system school. And once you do that, pretty much like you're guaranteed admission in your second year if UT is really some school that you want to go to afterwards. So don't let it discourage you. They actually created so many ways that you can still end up, if you want to really go to their school, get into a specific major over there. So there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to that.
Okay, next question. Due to the current situation, how do you recommend getting volunteer hours at a hospital, shadowing, by the time college applications open up next year?
I can speak a little bit about this. So depending on the situation, it might go till the end of the year, it might be longer. I would say that whenever things open again, I would try to immediately, start the volunteering. If you can't do that, remote volunteering is also a pretty good option. Personally, like over the summer, I've been doing this crisis hotline. It's like a text line volunteering. And you can also find like different remote volunteering like on a similar vein online. I'm sure you can just search it up. Or you could even spend your time doing other activities, a personal project is a great way to showcase what you're interested in, and you can write about that. Or if you if you go into like remote research, maybe reach out to a professor, and I'm sure they could like put you onto a review paper or to look over some of their papers. So there's definitely things you can do with the extra time, and there's also a lot of ways to get involved.
And just as a little plug, you should definitely sign up for our newsletter, weekly newsletter of the College Ambassadorship. We have virtual volunteer opportunities posted every week, as well as shadowing and other things. So yes. Okay.
Sorry. And then also I spoke to this is for medical school, but I spoke to a medical school admissions officer, and they were they said that they were really going to be looking like what you did during this time, just to see, how people are flexible and are able to adapt to certain situations, right? And so they mentioned stuff like probably you learned a new language, or just like Candy said, your own project. So try to be creative You don't have to, find a research opportunity or volunteering opportunity. Do what you feel like you really want to like understand better or study during this time. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna add one more thing.
Okay.
So sorry. I just wanted to say, going off of what both Candy and Christine said, a big thing I know that a lot of my friends are doing those donation bingo boards, and they're getting in touch with like hospitals or clinics or underserved areas. Just there's so many places that are like needing charitable donations of supplies, of money, of so many different kinds. And really anyone can do that. If you have the facilities and the means to distribute and do that, I think that's a great idea. Sorry, Diti.
No, I was just saying overall, I'm gonna say it's pretty improbable that you will get the traditional format of shadowing or doing research in a lab for a while. I would say it's more likely that you should be more flexible and try to find other ways to spend your time, like finding your passion projects, like everyone mentioned. And I would say if you do still want to do research or shadowing, I do know that some professors are doing some research that is more virtual, and you don't need to be in a wet lab. And so if you can find that, it could be something you do, but those will be very hard. There won't be a lot of opportunities, so don't count on it, but it is a possibility. And other than that, I do know that some hospitals have some scribing opportunities where they're doing it all virtual through an iPad, and so you'll be at home and the doctor and the patient will be in the actual clinic, and you're just supposed to write down everything that you hear virtually. So there are some options out there, but they are very scarce, and it'd be much more useful of your time if you put it somewhere else and try to do something that you might not usually get to do if you weren't at home so often.
Okay, so our next question is, does the major you put down when you apply have an effect on getting in? And then the second question is a follow-up for that, but specifically towards the UTs, which are the most competitive in the UTs, which I think we answered a little bit. But for the first one, does the major you put down when you apply have an effect on getting in?
Like we said, it really depends on the school. For Rice, they don't do it major specifically, so it has almost no effect on that. But for UT, it does have a pretty big effect because it is pretty hard to transfer from one school of study to another, depending on how competitive that school is, like we mentioned. And so I would say the major matters depending on the school. So for some schools, if you apply to UT, I'd be more considerate of what you really want to end up majoring in. But if you're applying to Rice, you can be a little bit more flexible because a lot of people at Rice do tend to change their majors a lot. It is something that you can afford to do at Rice.
Yeah. For UT, it does matter, especially when you're going for those very competitive colleges. So like engineering, business. So they give you a first choice major and a second choice major. And I remember there was this big thing my senior year that they would reject you altogether if you well, from the colleges, not from the school. So you would get accepted to the university, but they would reject you from that specific college if your second choice and your first choice kind of clashed a bit. I don't really have all the details, but I know for a fact that it does matter, especially when you are going to look to major in very competitive schools such as business and engineering.
I think that, like a DT said, Rice is pretty flexible with the majors and after you can change or whatever. But one strategy that I have heard of is if you apply to maybe a less popular major, you could get into the school and then change your major. Again, I think that strategy only applies for a select number of schools because a lot of the schools are pretty flexible. I think for choosing the major you put down, it also depends on how well you can write about it, because a lot of the essays, one of Rice's essays is kind of a why major, like why are you interested in what you want to study? So if, for example, you did go with that strategy and you were applying as a humanities major, but you can't really talk about humanities, then that's kind of not the best thing you could do, So I would say just take a look at this school you're really focused on, maybe reach out to someone who's actually going there or an alum, and they would be able to kind of guide you a little bit more about any possible strategies or what they would recommend or how competitive each of the individual schools are.
And that's also not to say, especially I'm specifically referring to like these schools where you can change easily, like Rice and liberal arts colleges specifically. It's definitely not impossible to put down a major that's totally unrelated to what you actually want to do, because I really thought I was going to do law all throughout high school, and then I was like, nope, neuroscience in like my last year. And so all of my extracurriculars were law related. And I think just expressing that and expressing my interest and why I changed, and like more about how I intend to use both and pursue both of my passions of STEM and the social sciences really helped me. And I feel like that also gave me an edge to show that it's a different perspective of where I'm coming from.
I would like to mention, I did apply as a biomedical engineering major to all of my schools and then ended up switching to neuroscience. But I did mention interest in that. I mentioned interest in both of those fields in my Common App essay and my SAA. And so I kind of showed that I wanted to do both in some way or the other, which kind of showed them that it was a little different, and that could have played into it a little bit.
If we have a letter of recommendation from a person outside of school, how would they need to submit it? I think that really depends on the application process you use, and that's more, they would have to send it to your college counselor for your school that would then deal with that and send it to the university at hand. At least that's how it worked in my school. I'm not sure.
I think it's very dependent upon, like you were saying, the college that you're also applying to, because I know for UT, at least, you could submit letters of rec for literally like anybody, like school, employer, people from your school, employers, mentors. So like the process was the same, but I know it varies sometimes depending on who the letter of rec is coming from and the college that you're applying to. So those are really just dependent factors.
Yes, and then for UT, we would upload the recommendations ourselves. The teachers wouldn't do the or the counselors or whoever would not do upload themselves. And for me, I made sure that I went to a school district called A-Leaf. I made sure that the A-Leaf letterhead was in that. I made sure that they put the A-Leaf letterhead for these recommendations. So I'm guessing if it's somebody outside or they're affiliated with an organization or a medical center or anything, make sure there's some kind of letterhead or something that kind of displays that, you know, they're affiliated with this group, and it kind of makes it more, I guess, valid in some ways. So yeah.
I think on the Common App one, they have a section, and there's like a drop-down menu for what type of person it is. And so it'd be like an outside person. You just click that, and then it sends, you put in the person's email, and it sends your recommender instructions on exactly how to format it, how to submit it. And so then it's really up to them. You just have to kind of remind them to make sure that gets in on time.
Okay, next question. Do colleges care how difficult your high school was? Because every high school has different requirements.
So I came from a really, really, really competitive high school. I definitely think that, first of all, if you're looking at rank, for example, I think that's a very dependent factor, because it depends on the size of your high school, how many pre-AP or AP classes were offered, what was weighted, what wasn't weighted. So a lot of that really, really does depend on your environment. And personally, as far as what I've heard and as far as what I know, colleges do look at which type of high school you're coming from, especially because like there's such a diverse population of people applying. So it's not something that they can just not look at. Like they have to take that into account. And especially to see, you know, if you come from maybe a much larger high school and they have a lot more options to offer. And so it might be easier for you to kind of get those better grades and be in like the top 7 or top 6% to like get automatically admitted to certain schools. So I think size is a big factor. And then competitiveness, I think if they're reviewing other kids who are applying also from your school, I feel like that's something that they'll sort of keep in the back of their mind, and especially maybe schools that like they've heard about are extremely competitive, high schools like maybe in your district or what they know of. So I definitely do think it's something that they at least keep in mind.
I will say that I don't know if this applies to all high schools, but I think most high schools do something like my school did a school profile, and my counselor set the school's profile in with my application when she turned in her letter of recommendation. And so that school profile is on our high school's website, and it basically says the size of our school. And so you know what the top 10% would be in that school. It also has a lot of other things. I don't know if all high schools would do it, but it lists how many national merit students we have, what percentage of our class takes AP classes, what percentage of our class gets 4s and 5s on AP classes, our average SAT, ACT scores. And so they get a bit of an idea of how competitive and how large our school is, but it really depends on if your school does it. And the way that I found out that my school has a school profile is that my school is actually pretty tells most students about this, but if you don't know, just ask your counselor and ask them if you have a school profile and if they could get access to it.
And one thing, I'm coming from a little bit of a different experience. My high school had 47 people in our graduating class, and we did not offer any AP classes, so yay. But, and on top of that, you really only got to pick one class that was different from everyone else's. It was pretty much everybody took the same classes. So a little bit of a different experience, but in that regard, our school was still considered to be rigorous because the classes you took in 11th and 12th grade were full IB. It was a full IB curriculum school. But their options were so limited. And so what they really looked for is, would you take the higher level when you could? Because IB only lets you take 4 high level classes in your 11th and 12th grade. And so if you're doing the full diploma, and so they're seeing like, oh, did you take a maximum of 3 or 4 high level classes? Did you take the more difficult ones? And on top of that, my school, since they had very limited class selection and limited opportunities, I actually self-studied for a couple of AP exams. So one thing that could also show if your school has limited opportunities or if something like that is if maybe you do a Coursera certification or something like that to just show that you are still trying to pursue your interests even if your school doesn't offer them.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
I agree with that. Like, it's about what you can do with the chances you're given. So if you do go to a super competitive school, really push yourself, take harder, more rigorous courses, expand into your community, put yourself out there, find any opportunities. If you do go to a smaller school with a few less opportunities, then do the ones you can and supplement and really write about the ones that you spent your time into. I think this might shed a little bit more light also on the admission process, but I know some colleges, Rice included, USC included, their application process involves like one admission officer taking care of like a region. So for example, for Rice, maybe we'll have one admission officer looking at the essay specifically from the greater Houston area, another admission officer taking a look at essays and applications from, Dallas, or another one looking at the ones from the East Coast. So these people would probably have a little bit of an idea of how competitive your school is, especially seeing as for maybe like larger or more popular high schools, these people actually go to the school sometimes and kind of give like an admissions overview or introduction to the school. That said, I wouldn't count too much on the admissions officers knowing the nitty-gritty ins and outs of your school, like how competitive this class is and how hard this teacher is compared to another teacher in the same, like teaching the same subject. I think that a really good rule of thumb is just to do as much as you can with however many opportunities you have and really pushing yourself, because that's how you showcase the best of your abilities.
And one question that we have gotten a lot on the FAQ, I was just looking through them, was using your AP classes and if you should use them, and just if it's good to take more AP classes just regarding that. And I think that's a really good thing a lot of students have a question with, so I think we should go ahead and answer that.
I will, oh no, go ahead.
For me personally, I took AP courses. Some of the exams I was able to get the credit, some I was not. But I really, really wish I would have focused on dual credit, and I really wish I would have just put all my time and effort into getting dual credit, because either way you're going to get that credit and it's going to transfer to your universities most of the times. But I feel like with AP, there was a disconnect between what my advisors or counselors said it was going to be and how it really began to, or actually impacted my college experience or my college life. I feel like I had more opportunity with dual credit, but it was good because it was more rigorous. So I wasn't so shocked when I got into college, when it came to the rigor and the workload. So that was a plus, but I really, really wish I would have focused more on dual credit.
For me, my school had a lot of AP options, like a lot of courses available, and you also had the option to do dual credit with a nearby community college. But the biggest factor for me was that in our school, there was a huge difference in GPA and if you took AP classes or if you took dual credit. And so for that reason, I did take a lot of AP classes from every year. And so I do have a lot of AP credit, but I am not using majority of my credits as a pre-med, just because most med schools recommend that you take a college's a four-year college's courses. So for those prerequisite, those pre-med classes that you need to take for med school, for those like basic core sciences, I've been recommended by my advisor to not apply those credits, just because that's what med schools want you to have a good foundation in them and take them in your college. So for those, I am not applying my AP credit. Instead, I'm taking the classes again. But I am happy that I took those AP courses, because going into those classes, I feel more prepared knowing that I've already been through the material before. And so that is one aspect that is useful. And I would definitely take all those AP classes again. I might not necessarily take all the AP exams again, just because they are a lot of money, and seeing as I'm not using any of those credits, not as useful, but the information is 100% useful. And I did take a few dual credit classes. They were not in any sciences, and they were really useful just because I did it for government, which is just a core class that you need for your college, and that was useful just to get that out of the way. And same with any AP classes that weren't science related, like my government class and that, or like my language classes, those were useful in taking some credits out of the way.
I think with AP credits, there's a couple different uses for them. One is to maybe up the competitiveness of your essay, of your application, show that you've really done and taken the harder courses. I think in terms of like actual practical use in college, a lot of them don't really transfer. But I will say that one of the regrets I have about AP courses in high school was not taking like the basic ones, I guess, the core sciences. So I really wish I took the AP test for AP Physics, because that would actually have saved me a course at Rice. One of my biggest things that I am glad I did actually was taking the AP Chemistry course and credit and transferring it over to Rice, because Rice's basic chemistry, I guess intro chem, is notoriously difficult. I'm sure Annika can back me up on this, but I actually could skip that because I had the AP Chemistry credit. So that's one of the things that I really am glad I did. So I think one good strategy is to look at the schools you're considering, see which AP tests they actually do, I guess, accept, and focusing on those, and then using any other ones kind of just as a GPA application boost.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I'm definitely going to second what Christine said. I don't know I feel like it's very dependent, like I said, on which high school you're coming from and the environment you are like applying from. So I'm from Dallas and I go to a high school in Dallas. And I have a lot of opportunities to take either AP, and they don't offer as much dual credit, but I do regret not taking dual credit in those easy, like Aditya was saying, like government and English type of classes, because literally dual credit is you are taking it, it's usually you're taking it at like a nearby community college or like a community college professor, some kind is like coming to teach it, at least from like where I am. And you're literally getting that college credit. And so you're getting the experience of what they would teach you in college while you're just getting that class out of the way. And so I do regret not taking dual credit for that. And then going off of, at least for UT, and then looking at what medical schools want, a lot of them do want you to take, I've like heard of very few that accept core science class AP credit, because a lot of them want you to get that exposure, to get that content down. It not only benefits when you're applying for med school, but for the MCAT as well, the rigor is much different. So I think that taking those classes again in college, if you're especially applying to like a harder class, it'll definitely prepare you. I will say some of my AP classes in high school were in fact more difficult than when I came to college and took like a very few, but I will say like for the AP chemistry course that I took at my high school, my Gen Chem course was in fact a little easier than what I learned in high school. So I definitely think that taking the AP course and then double check about if you want to actually take the exam, because it does, you know, time, money, effort, and sometimes it's worth more getting the content if you know that the school you're going to may or may not accept like the credits you receive. So
yeah. And I think that kind of answers the next question about the differences between dual credit and AP too. So and then I think our final question is, how important / helpful are subject tests for schools that don't require them?
I think it's more of, for me, it was more of like an application boost. I kind of just took the ones that I didn't have to spend a ton of extra effort studying for. So for example, I think I took a history one, US history, because I was already taking a US history like AP high school course. I think that if it's at all possible, just do the ones that you can and do the ones that you don't have to put that much extra effort in, because I honestly have not found them that useful throughout my college career, taking college courses. Yeah.
I would say they're really only helpful if that college specifically says that they're recommended or required. If they don't mention it, they usually don't really care about them. It'll be an application boost if you're already doing them for a different college, but don't go out of your way to do them if none of your colleges are actually recommending them or requiring them.
I definitely agree with Aditi. I know at UT, certain colleges would literally say, like, we highly recommend you take like these subject tests. And I know at least my fellow classmates would really only do it in the case that like they needed to take them. But it really is just a little bit of like extra work. And if you don't need to do it, or if you don't really like need that application boost, then like it's not super necessary, I would personally say.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming out. Please visit us on our website, join our mailing list. And we will be, if you did not RSVP, just shoot your email, private message it to me. And I will add you to the list to send out the video for this. But yeah, check us out on our website. And thank you so much to all our panelists that came out today and everybody who came to listen. So thank you guys so much.